Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Something Something with Eric Newman. As you may be aware, we switched locations. We're now at my home comedy club, the best comedy club in the world, the Comedy Cellar Studio, and I'm very excited to do it here. As much time as I could spend in and around this establishment, I am appreciative of. And this would make Liz Fiorati, the GM of the Cellar, throw up, vomit all over the place if she heard me say anything kind about her, especially publicly. But I love you, Liz. Welcome to Something Something, episode 10. We're going to tackle the subconscious versus conscious. Something I've thought about consciously a lot and probably subconsciously. I want to talk about that contrast and how it relates to dating and sexuality. Let me start with a personal story. I went on a first date with a girl roughly a year ago. It was a sober date. I like sober dates, by the way. I push very passionately the idea of sober dating because you'll know if you're actually having a good time. I think that's important. Like once I figured out I was only enjoying certain dates because I was drunk, I just stopped showing up drunk because I think, again, I think I'm at the point in my life where I don't have any desire to just hook up with someone if there's not a real connection, and being sober allows you to really sort of hone in on that connection and whether it's good or not and whether there's compatibility or not. So I've sort of made that choice. But we were dead sober. We were hanging out for a few hours. I'm having a great time. As far as I can tell, she is too. And it's one of those, like, I think especially now that I've sort of had the dating experience I have, I think it's much easier to identify whether like she's kind of just like, laughing or pretending to have a good time, sort of just to get through it or not. And genuinely from the first couple minutes we were hanging out, our first date was at the Vessel in Hudson Yards, and she was new to the city and she didn't know exactly where it is. And it's kind of hard with Google Maps to find that location. And so the original spot we were supposed to meet at, she wasn't at. So I called her and she's like, "Oh, I'm here." And I'm like, "Oh, no, you're not." And so we spent like 5 minutes on the phone with each other trying to locate each other. And the whole time we were just making jokes about how we would jump off the vessel and like commit suicide on the vessel and all this stuff. And so we were already cracking up on the phone call on our way to the date. And so I was like, okay, this is probably going to be at least pretty fun. And we just hit it off, and we hung out for a few hours. I had a show here at the Cellar at 7 p.m. I think we met at like 3 or 4, and we made out at the end real quick. And I was like, oh my God, I had like those butterflies, which I don't get very often anymore. And aging sucks. But I texted her asking if she got home okay, and I didn't hear back. And I was like, wait, what the hell? And then like I woke up the next morning expecting, okay, I'll hear back from her now. Didn't hear anything. And then like later at like 5 p.m. she got back to me, and I was already like a little annoyed. I'm like, okay, like just get back to me and tell me you got home safely. Like even if you're like not interested. And the other thing was I couldn't even fathom the idea that she wasn't interested, because I was like, I was like playing with her hair and like we were being touchy and we held hands at one point and then we kissed. Like I was like, okay, something's going well here. So I was like really kind of confused. I was like, there's no question we had a good time. I almost felt like texting her, like, we had a good time, get back to me. But I didn't do that because that's kind of crazy. But I don't know. I just like, I was sort of 100%, and we were dead sober. It was all happening when we were dead sober. So I was even more sure. I was like, what's going on? Anyway, she eventually responded back. We ended up dating for a while, and we kept seeing each other. And then one night I was at her apartment, and I think we were just like laughing or whatever. And I brought it up. I was like, hey, you almost like you didn't respond back to me for like 24 hours after our first date. I'm just curious, like, why didn't you write me back? And she's like, I don't know. I was kind of like weirded out by you. You were like we were dead sober, and you were like really touchy, like in the middle of the day. And it made me feel weird. And the first half was really fun, and I really enjoyed our banter and our conversation. But once you started getting touchy, I kind of like just wanted to get out of there. And it was weird because I was so drawn to her. I'm never like this, but I think this is why it's important to like sort of not get drunk on first dates. I was very drawn to her, to the point that even within the first hour of knowing her, I was already like kind of like playing with her hair and like being like affectionate and nice, and like I'm never really like that. And so that sort of made me realize I was doing that. And I knew I had a show later on in the night, so it's not like I was like trying to sleep with her or anything. Like it was really just like I just enjoyed her company and I felt very like drawn to her physically. And so I don't know, it just but it was funny. She was like sort of elaborating on what happened. And she's like, right after I left the date, I like called two of my friends and I was like, the first half was fun, but it just got like weird and uncomfortable. And she's like, I wasn't really into you, I'm telling you. And I'm like, that's funny because we're having this conversation in your bed right now. So you were. But it's funny how she goes, so I go, but what happened? Like, run me through it. Because I'm just like very curious about these situations. She's like, I left the date saying, thank God I got out of there. And then that night I had a sex dream about you. I left the date saying, thank God I got out of there. And then I had a sex dream about you. And I've never had one of those. And I go, oh my God, what happened in the sex dream? And she goes, I can't really remember. I'm like, okay, whatever. She remembers. But I think that's what I mean. Like, that's subconscious versus conscious. Like, consciously, she thought I was like too flirty and touchy and maybe made her feel a little uncomfortable, even though she didn't express it. If she would have expressed it or shown it to me, I would have stopped immediately. It felt like it was good vibes. But somewhere, in her mind, she was like, this is weird or whatever. And then subconsciously, she also wanted to sleep with me. So you have to make love to her subconscious, guys. Forget her body and her conscious being. It's not about that. You got to make love to her soul, baby. You got to get in there. You got to get her soul in every position. Your souls have to connect and make little soul babies, little subconscious soul babies. But that's why I hate when I hear the phrase, like when people are dating people and they refer to, and women do this a lot. I've heard it many times. Girls go, oh my God, he's perfect on paper. Right there, the second a woman says, he's perfect on paper, I know it's a wrap. Like, throw that paper away, crumple it up and throw it. Like, throw it in the garbage. Like, that's a woman saying that not only does her subconscious not really desire the guy, she's even aware of it on the surface because she's already kind of making excuses. Because every he's great on paper kind of starts really with a but he's great on paper. Like, it's almost like they're not saying but that's what they're implying. It's not he's great on paper. It's ... but he's great on paper. And the ... is usually like, I'm not that into him, and that's all decided subconsciously. Like, our subconscious, obviously, like, this is not new information, decides things, and we try to dig up as much as we possibly can to get it to the conscious level to then make decisions once we're already aware of them. And subconscious can lead people down bad paths too, by the way. It's not all good. I mean, like, most of the time when you hear people have like really like crazy on and off toxic relationships, we hate each other, we love each other, we hate each other. That's also usually people following their subconscious, which is, like, oh my God, I just like need this person. And that's coming from a very like deep place. But I think a buddy of mine once told me, he goes, the right person is usually, you found the right person when the heart and the head agree. And I think that's a great way to put it. But almost all of sexual attraction is subconscious. Like, what movie really changed my perspective on this or really like taught me a lot was 500 Days of Summer, which is like a real, like, I think if you're a guy and you saw that movie and you watched it, particularly at the vulnerable age of, 22 or 23, whatever I was at that point as a boy, as a man, it really hurt. It was tough because so Zoe Deschanel is she's sleeping with Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, and they really like each other, and he is madly in love and wants to like marry her immediately, and she still won't commit. And what was confusing about it was, I grew up with one very specific perspective, I think, on men, and it actually was a disservice to me. My mom was very like, very, very, very family oriented and very like loyal and all that stuff. And it's all for the family and it's all for the kids. And most of the men on my dad's side, not including my dad was pretty faithful too, but he also had like just a host of problems, mental problems. But my dad's dad and my dad's brother, I mean, these were guys who were just like cheating all the time. And also kind of just like vocalized like that this was fine behavior. It wasn't just, and I know it was a different time and all that stuff, but like there was sort of just this like stigma of like, oh, like, yeah, like men cheat. Like I remember like my grandfather told me that it's like, you don't want to hear this as a kid, but it was just like, yeah, men cheat. Like that's what we do. And so I think like, and then you not only does that sort of get you to understand relationships in like a pretty shitty way, it also kind of just devalues women. Like the undertones of that message is like, yeah, you can like get emotional support and love from your wife, but you could get sex from other people, multiple women simultaneously. And like that kind of puts it in your head and your subconscious, let's say, that, you know, women are good, like women are valued for sex. So, you know, I sort of always had that in my soul growing up. And then you watch 500 Days of Summer, and so Zooey Deschanel like doesn't want to commit to Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and you go, oh wow, women can just categorize men like that also. And I'm not implying that she was using him for sex, because I truly, truly don't believe women ever use men for sex, and I'm gonna get into that a little later. But sort of just it taught me, it kind of opened my eyes to this notion that like you know, women can have this view that, oh, we can have sex and do romantic shit, but you're still not my boyfriend. Remember, you're not my boyfriend. And that was sort of a new concept to me at the time. And it was her subconscious, her character's subconscious, saying this just isn't the guy for whatever reason. And you can tell what makes the film so powerful and what makes the characters so well written is you can tell she's really frustrated by it. And the frustration is coming from her conscious. It's saying, come on, subconscious, let me, come on, everything should be great here. Let me have it. And you're powerless to your subconscious in many ways. Like Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character is almost teaming up with her conscious because her conscious is on his side, but nothing beats the subconscious. And then there's that line at the end, that just devastating line where it's just a soul killer, man, where she's talking to him on the bench and she's now engaged to another guy, and she looks at him and goes, I just woke up one day and I knew. And he goes, knew what? And she goes, what I was never sure of with you. Oh, that one hurt, man. But it sort of like brings me to I think a larger topic, or a different topic, perhaps, of sexual outlook between men and women. Because like I said, like I had all these thoughts growing up and all these ideas that I thought were cemented. And as I kept experiencing things and looking around me, I realized that I didn't know anything. And I think women, particularly this generation of women, I think have brilliantly made the decision that sex doesn't mean as much to them. And subconsciously it still does, by the way. There's nothing you can do about that. Like, it still means a lot. Sex is the most, but I grew up honestly thinking sex was generally everything to women and like nothing to men. Just sort of, you know, even though it always meant a lot to me, it's clearly the most intimate thing you can do with another human being. Like, I can't stand when people from both sides, from both genders, pretend like that's not the case. I've heard women say holding hands is more intimate to me. It's like, oh, really? Then why did you do the most intimate act with your father? That's weird. I guess you should just sleep with your dad, your mom, your siblings, your teachers, your camp counselors. You've held hands with all of them. Nobody ever asks you what your hand count is. You know, nobody gets accused of assault for trying to hold your hand when you didn't want it. You know, sex is more intimate than holding hands or romantic words or anything. But you have to, but women have done a great job this generation of pretending like it isn't. I always just thought that like sex was nothing to men, except me. There's a lot to me always, and everything to women. And if a man left a woman after sleeping with her, that the woman was destroyed. But you know what I've realized? I've asked girls out in elementary school on napkin notes in the cafeteria and got rejected, and that destroyed me. And that had nothing to do with sex. Obviously, when you have feelings for someone, sex adds another layer of attachment and closeness to the relationship. So detachment will naturally be harder when sex is involved. But it wasn't the sex itself that made women so attached or make women so attached and heartbroken. They were already drawn in to some extent at the point that they already had sex with the guy, at least in most cases. So aside from those extreme cases of like sex parties or poly relationships or some unexpected one night stand that happens when you don't know the person at all within 20 minutes of knowing them and you fuck them, women are usually very drawn to you by the time they sleep with you. And it doesn't mean they're thinking this is going to be my husband or my boyfriend. Sometimes they just got out of something super serious and they just want to have fun and have an adventure and they bonded with you and the timing worked out and it happened. And as a man, you could have been one dumb comment away from not having sex with her. And maybe you even said it, but she barely processed it because she was too drunk or was screaming Taylor Swift lyrics over your usual deal-breaking comment and, and she didn't hear it and you got laid. The point is, I feel like guys think there's always sort of been this idea that like when a guy finally sleeps with a woman, she's his. And I think I sort of want to challenge that theory really quickly. Sort of going back to what I was saying, like, a lot of guys think that like, oh, a woman sleeps with you and then you don't call her again and she's heartbroken because sex means more to women than it does to men. And although I believe that probably is the case, the devastation that a man feels when a woman, even who he maybe didn't even want to date seriously, sleeps with him and then doesn't want to again is maybe more powerful. Like I said, guys think, oh my God, I slept with her. I did it. She's mine. Even if you don't want her to be yours, from purely an egotistical standpoint, you think you bettered her, she's yours. And that's just the beginning. It's not about getting the woman. It's about keeping the woman, particularly a woman that you're very into. So you have to remember, like, times have changed. Back in the day, women were so reliant on men for financially, for food and shelter and jewelry and vacations. And, they didn't really have independence. So, when a guy left them, it wasn't necessarily the sex that made them feel the loss. And that's like probably sixth on the list. It was, that's part of it, but it was everything that was lost. And the reason why I think sex would be fifth or sixth on that list, and I'm just throwing out a number here, I haven't actually taken the time to count, is because I don't think women prioritize sex as much as men. I'm not saying that women, that's why when people say like, oftentimes like women will be like, we love sex just as much as men. I'm not saying that you don't love it as much as men while it's happening in the act of sex. You may enjoy it as much from a pleasurable standpoint of how it feels, but you certainly do not prioritize it as much as men do, on average. It's just not as important to you guys. Like, and that's not to say that the sex doesn't have to be good. It's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying the priority of where you rank sex, in a relationship isn't as high as we generally rank it. And some girls love sex and others like it and others can kind of take it or leave it. And I don't really think there's as wide of a spectrum for men. But you hear all the time, how many girls I know so many girls who just like will take a year off of sex. They'll just be like, and even in their 20s, like attractive women who are just like, I'm tired of dealing with men. I'm just going to focus on work and read my Kindle and I'm just going to take a break. And they're 29 years old, No man's not doing that. No man is taking a break from sex willingly. If a guy in his 20s doesn't have sex for a year, it's not his choice. Believe me, he couldn't find a willing partner. So he either goes crazy quietly to himself or murders people. That's, But you speak to women all the time who are like, I got out of a serious relationship and I have no interest in doing anything with anyone for a long time. And eventually they will, but guys are just different. When my almost fiance and I broke up, I didn't sleep with anyone for 3 months. And every guy was like, whoa. And every girl was like, so that's not a lot. It's like, I'm a man who craves sex constantly and has the opportunity to do it most nights of the week, if not every night of the week. So yes, it is a lot. It doesn't feel like a lot to you ladies, because you don't crave sex as much as I do or the average man does. It's just the average guy doesn't have a ton of opportunities because most guys suck. So the girl sleeps with, anyway, so the girl sleeps with the guy. The guy is excited. He got sex from this girl. And the girl gets sex too. But more so, like we said, we don't prioritize the sex as an act itself, if you're a lady, as much as a guy does. So, it's more about the validation and attention from the guy she's chosen to want to have sex with. And the guy thinks it's a wrap, I got her. But guess what? She may still have some feelings for her ex. She may just want to make that ex more of a distant memory. She may want to really give it a shot at a relationship with you. But all of that doesn't matter, because the second you as a man start thinking, oh, I got it, it's mine, you're going to lose it. She doesn't have any financial ties to you. She has her own job. She's pretty. She's likable. And there's a lot of guys out there who would treat her well. So guys usually go one of two ways after the initial sex, right? Guys finally have sex with a woman, and they tend to go in one direction or the other in most cases. They either back off completely, right? Which obviously won't feel good for the girl. But again, either did those rejections I got in elementary school asking girls to be my Valentine. So yeah, the guy either backs off, and it sucks because it's a dopamine hit. Especially it's a dopamine. If you're a girl, again, a lot comes down to ego also. Like, if you're a girl and you sleep with a guy for the first time, and in most cases that means you're at least open to the possibility of something happening here, right? And the guy ghosts you or is rude or doesn't talk to you after or ignores you, subconsciously you are feeling, I'm not enough. What did I do? But it's the same thing with men. And so if you do that to a woman, it's very dopamine deflating. And it's like going from the extreme high of having sex with someone, again, in my opinion, the most intimate act you can do with another human being, to the extreme low of crickets. Okay, now we're not talking. So it's the most amount of physical attention quickly changed to no attention. So that's one way, which sucks and is also just like rude at a deep human level, just really rude. Or the second option for a lot of guys, and equally as bad, not as better for the woman's ego, far better, but as far as trying to make a relationship work, probably equally as harmful, and that's the guy just becomes way too attached and way too emotional about the whole thing. And I always say a guy is expected to stay strong emotionally. That's what women need from guys. So they need us to be emotionally in tune with our feelings and need to know how to express them, honestly. But we need to stay strong and calm in our feelings. If you sleep with a girl on the first or second date and she wakes up the next morning and goes, that was fun, let's see where it goes, and you start smothering her by showing her how important that night was to you and texting her and telling her your feelings and that you miss her, or you go too sexual and you start texting her, I wish I was fucking you all day today. I can't stop thinking about your pussy. Like, that's another misstep, big misstep. Because the first option shows like, you're way too clingy and you're way too emotionally into the woman. And the second one shows that you're so obsessed with sex and that you see her as a sexual object. And both scenarios are bad. The right scenario, if you like the girl and you felt like there was a connection and you were sexually compatible, is to just say, I want to see you again, and to express that in a nice, gentlemanly-like way. Just because you already slept with a woman doesn't mean you can talk to her like a prostitute now. So it's not that most girls are so hurt by a guy walking away because of the sex itself. It's rude and a huge hit to the ego to handle it in a way where you ghost or can't handle your feelings. And the saddest part is that a lot of those guys who ghost actually really do like the girl or want to get to know her more, but can't handle the fact that they actually have feelings for someone. And so they just scramble and leave and then come back 6 months later and the girl's like, fuck you, you hurt me, and she's probably moved on. And I've just seen these scenarios play out so much. And so that's why everybody should get therapy. But, let me tell you something. In my early 20s, if I had sex with a girl early on and she became more distant to me, dude, that shit hurt. That shit hurts so much, man. It hurts. It hurts because as a man, you feel like I conquered it. I accomplished the hardest thing to accomplish. I got her in bed. I did it. And then all of a sudden she doesn't want to see you again. And you're like, was I like, do I have no idea what I'm doing? Like, I just don't, it's just very confusing for a guy to get ghosted by a girl, like especially after you've slept with her. And I know that women, women are smart and they're shrewd and they understand guys' emotions on average better than guys understand their emotions. And so they always have that upper hand a little bit. And they know that once they sleep with us, we think, all right, I got it. It's in the bag. So, the pull away particularly hurts a lot because you've already, in a man's mind, once you sleep with her, you've already gone as the furthest you possibly can with her physically. So the fact that she doesn't feel attached from that when in our heads she should be, that really hurts. Because men value sex a lot too. Like, I know men are more ashamed or more embarrassed to admit that we get emotional over sex too. When we like a girl and we sleep with a girl, we're in, baby. And we just pray that we can get hard every time. It's all we want. It's all we want, man. We just want to get hard for you ladies. We'll do anything. Really. But yeah, I've done a lot of therapy and I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out how I feel. And, whenever you sleep with a woman you like and she doesn't want anything else, you feel really powerless. And women never use guys for sex. Because to use guys for sex would imply that the reason why men sometimes use women for sex, pretty commonly actually, is because vast majority of the time we're going to orgasm at the end. There is that prize and reward at the end of the using the woman. Women almost never orgasm from a one-night stand. Because, like I've said earlier, I think women need to feel more comfortable with you, and certainly to orgasm. I mean, I've worked months on that before. I mean, like, it's just not something that's. I mean, most women have a vibrator. I mean, there's a reason for that. It's because men aren't reliable. And I'm not like shitting on men here. I'm just saying like it's a tough task. I've been through it, but I'm just saying like women know their bodies, and I think sometimes men are just like so focused on what their performance is like that they forget that they just need to like listen and pay attention closely. And especially if you have like a one-night stand or you're drunk or whatever, like you're probably not gonna be very good at that. Like I said, like I've heard guys get heartbroken and then like yell at their ex-girlfriends like, you used me for sex. It's like, she didn't use you for sex, dude. She had sex with you when she thought that you potentially could be the person for her. And when she realized that you weren't, she stopped having sex with you. It's as simple as that. With most women in most situations, the willingness to have sex with you coincides with the idea that you could potentially be the person for them on a long-term basis. And when they figure out and make the decision that you're not, they take the sex with them. That's all that it is. She didn't use you. She wasn't like, I'm going to go get his dick tonight. I know like a lot of women like fuck around like that. Like, they'll like say shit like that, like fucking around, but it's like, that's not what it's about. So as a guy, please don't ever cry and start yelling at a girl that she used you for sex, because that is truly the weakest moment in a man's life, because it's just not true. And I know it feels that way. I get how it could feel that way, guys, but that is not the case. But yeah, I guess that's my whole point. It was like, women aren't like having sex with guys to orgasm, like initially. Like they're not like having sex with a guy for the first time because they're like, he's gonna make me orgasm. Obviously, there's a part of her subconsciously, she obviously feels like you'll be good in bed or she wouldn't want to have sex with you in most cases. But most of it is for like just like sort of the validation and the attention and the idea that she's desirable and all of that stuff. Whereas the guy's like, I want to come. It's just a different level of thinking. And look, maybe it's not in a girl's nature to like walk away after she slept with you because again, there are biological studies that have been done that prove that, there's a hormone released in a woman after sex happens that makes you feel closer. So maybe it's not in their nature to just walk away after they sleep with you, but women in this generation particularly are going against their nature. Their conscious mind says, no, I don't care how I feel. This is not for me. And guys get hurt and they feel used. But yeah, I mean, women, they follow their intuition. And when they sleep with you, it's a trial. They're initially saying like, I think I could be right here. And then depending on how you are in bed and then post bed, you can confirm that intuition or they go, oops, never mind. And, the women I've dated, I've always made sure are like very self-respecting women who know their worth because I'm really only drawn to women like that. And the stories that I've heard about guys from their past are baffling, dude. Like, you know who I feel really sorry for? The guy friend, the guy who's always there for the girl, secretly in love with her, and the whole time she's dating other guys, talking about them. She obviously knows 100% that he's in love with her, but he hasn't said anything, so she could pretend like he's not. And it's always going to be a little awkward and whatever, but she gets to get the guy's point of view on things and get the attention all the time, and he's, she's not sleeping with him. And she doesn't have to, and she doesn't feel the need to, or, forget the desire to. That obviously she doesn't have. Subconsciously, there's no desire to sleep with him. The fact that there are even guys out there who still think that they're going to win a woman over by like showing how supportive they are or how much they care about her and staying around. And while she comes to them late at night after the guy she's in love with breaks her heart or hurts her, and they're there for her and she could pour her feelings out and they continuously think that, oh, the more I'm there for her, the more she's going to realize that I'm the one eventually and envisions them eventually walking down the aisle together. Like that guy is an idiot. If he were the kind of guy who would have been honest about his intentions a lot earlier, instead of hiding them because he's scared that she'll never talk to him again, she probably would have been more interested. Like it's a catch-22. It's almost like the more he pretends like he's okay with the current arrangement of just being friends, the more she confirms that he's not a good catch. So it's like guys are always, because it just shows fear. It shows fear. It shows lack of confidence in your own value, and that's why like I don't play that game. I'm very clear, like these are my intentions, and I've gotten rejected a lot, but I won't be that guy who just hangs around agonizing and longing for this woman who's clearly interested in, has clearly been interested and dated 5 other guys since we've been friends, and I'm just sort of waiting around for her to choose me. Is like, it's mind-blowing. And there's something like skeevy about it too. Like, I also don't trust it. I don't like that guy. I'm not saying like he's necessarily a bad guy or whatever, but like there's just such a dishonesty that goes along with it that like, because you're kind of just like waiting for the girl to get vulnerable enough. You're like, oh, she's, she calls him up crying at night because she finds out that her boyfriend cheated on her or won't commit or like was rude to her or whatever. And she's drinking and he's like, come over and drink more. And like hoping that like, okay, like now is the time she needs so much validation. And this is when I will strike. Like, to me, that mentality is like fucked up. And like, I don't like it. And I feel like some guys have played that supportive friend role for so many years to different women and eventually rack up enough vulnerable women to have a consistent sex life. The saddest consistent sex life. But those are the guys though that women have sex with one time very often, and that's it. And for years, anytime it gets brought up, she's like, "Yeah, I was in a terrible place." It's like, you want to be the guy. I don't think I would feel very good about myself if women referred to me as the guy they slept with because they were in a terrible place. Like, I don't want to be that guy. Like, fucking take it off my body count. Like, just take it off. I swear to God, if I ever heard, no, guys, seriously, John Zoran, if I ever heard a girl in the history of my life, if I ever got wind of the fact that she slept with me because she was just so, like, hurt by another guy and it just didn't, like, it was a mistake and, like, whatever, I'll take you right off I would be willing to subtract those girls. Doesn't count. I'm gonna what? Mutual annulment.
Call her up and say, "Hey, it's off your list as well."
100%. I go, okay, fine. So I was a mistake. If any girl, let me tell you something. If any girl in my past considers us having sex a mistake that she made in a vulnerable moment and she regrets it, well, what did you say, Johnny?
Mutual annulment.
We're gonna call that a mutual annulment. We wipe the slate clean. Okay, we didn't have sex. It didn't happen. You're off my list. I get to report. I report a lower body count, which as a man I'm not that proud of. But you report a lower body count, which as a woman I'm sure is thrilling. And we'll just do it there, baby. I'm not going to be anybody's regret or anybody's mistake. You listen, ladies. If you had sex with me, it's because you really wanted to, and everything in your subconscious and conscious being told you that you're going to have a great time, and it means a lot to you, and I'm going to be a great lover. And that's the only way we're playing this game, baby. That's the only way. Anyway, my point is, those guys, those friends that just hang around waiting for a woman to get vulnerable enough, those are the guys that are getting the women to say, well, on paper, he's great. Here's a sidestep. I wanted to talk about this too. To some degree, women often insert their opinions about what they think about, one of their friends hooking up with a guy or getting involved romantically with a guy or whatever. I just have to say this, and I don't mean to sound like a dick here. I do. I definitely mean to sound like a dick. When you are starting to date a girl, fellas, doesn't matter what her friends think about you. I don't care. Look, I'm always going to try to be polite and nice and be kind, but if I'm getting involved with a girl and her friends have an issue with me, as a man, I'll tell you why. Generally speaking, it's better for a girl's friends not to like you when you're involved with the girl. It's because they see you as a threat. And by that, I mean that they know subconsciously that their friend subconsciously is really, really into you. So they start putting up the guard. They start going, you might get hurt here. You might get hurt here. They start ringing the fucking alarm. They're ringing the alarm. We need more girls. Girls, let's rally all the girls. We got to save this girl. Her subconscious is vulnerable. And that just means the girl is really into you. And that could mean that you will develop and become a healthy relationship for her or a toxic one. I can't tell you that. All I can say is that you've already made love to her subconscious if the other girls are gathering the troops to try to protect her. You made 7 levels of lovemaking, inception lovemaking to her already. And the girls, they know it. They sniff it. Their subconscious know it. And you're actually, as a guy, if you're that guy that's making that friend group, go so crazy and get into a frenzy over it, you're in pretty good shape. If you're the guy that the girl's friends are going, just give him another chance. Look how amazing he is. He's perfect on paper. You're done, baby. You're out. And that's the difference between subconscious and conscious. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Something Something with Eric Newman, our first official episode at the world famous Comedy Cellar. Please like, subscribe, tell your friends. It's our new YouTube page, which just started, is at Something Something Pod, and you can listen and you can watch the videos on the YouTube page, and you can listen to on Spotify and everywhere else. And I'm putting clips on all my social platforms. Thank you so much one more time for Zoran and John, our two producers on the pod. We will see you next time at the Comedy Cellar Studio. I'm Eric Newman. Happy Labor Day, everybody. Bye.